Tashtilik, welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that provides a preview of this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibetan Administration. Let's have a look at the headlines. Department of Information and International Relations launches Tibet at the United Nations campaign. Tibetan political leader greets India on the 68th Republic Day. Trump administration supports Tibetan issue. European Parliament and French Senate holds first Tibet Interest Group and Tibet Group meeting of the year respectively. Representative of Office of Tibet Brussels meets French lawmaker. Representative of Office of Tibet South Africa participates in event honoring Mahatma Gandhi. The Department of Information and International Relations of Central Tibetan Administration is undertaking a major effort to strengthen human rights advocacy for Tibet at the United Nations, particularly in the lead up to the 34th United Nations Human Rights Council beginning next month. A three-member delegation from department consisting of Secretary Sonam Nobu Thakbo, Secretary Dajun Shaling, and United Nations and Human Rights Officer Kande Tsomo, along with Nimal Hamo, Tugu Delek Rinpoche's niece, is currently in Geneva for a week-long advocacy program at the United Nations missions based in Geneva.
Any legun kalia, any chikasave, Pumi Tigungane, Nemde Gagonalia, any legui pejogi, any tabju, Tondoji Tunabore.
A two-day strategic planning meeting led by Tibet United Nations Advocacy Coalition was held prior to the advocacy work, which assessed CTA's past United Nations advocacy work and devised a strategic plan to profiling the pertinent human rights violation in Tibet using the United Nations human rights mechanisms and opportunities in the next 5 years. The meeting featured a number of United Nations and Tibet experts from across the spectrum, training 14 participants on empowering the human rights defenders and educating them with a sense of purpose and direction in how to make best use of the United Nations mechanisms and its procedures to keep the issue of Tibet alive on the United Nations human rights agenda. The meeting focused on discussing various human rights issues in Tibet, such as crackdown on human rights defenders through arbitrary arrest, unfair sentencing as in the case of late Tugu Delek Rinpoche and that of language rights advocate Tashi Wangchuk, religious repression in Tibet as in the case of demolition and forced eviction of residents at Larongkar, state interference in religious affairs, administration of monasteries, case of enforced disappearance as in the case of Panchen Lama, monitoring and surveillance as in the case of practice of grid system and travel restrictions, passport confiscation and discriminatory practices in issuing passport. Tibetan political leader Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sengye congratulated India on its 68th Republic Day anniversary. A brief ceremony was held at Kashak Secretariat to celebrate the occasion on the January 26th. The ministers, secretaries and senior officials of the Central Tibetan Administration attended the ceremony. Sikyong hoisted the Indian national flag to the tune of the Indian national anthem and greeted the people of India. Sikyong further expressed gratitude to the people and government of India and said that he is hopeful that the joint development of India's economic and democratic rights will continue even further in times to come. Following the brief ceremony at the Kashak, Sikyong took part in official ceremony organized by the local Indian administration of Kangra district at the Jilla Parishad Hall in Lower Dharamshala. Kalung Kama Yishe and Kalung Phagwat Sireng, along with Deputy Speaker of Tibetan Parliament Acharya Yishe Phuntsok, accompanied Sikyong at the function. The chief guest at the function was Sri Brij Bihari Lal Patel, Speaker of the Himachal Pradesh Legislative Assembly. In response to the questions on Tibet from members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in the process of confirmation of Rex Tillerson, cabinet nominee of President Trump for the Secretary of State, who got confirmed on Wednesday this week by the Senate, Mr. Tillerson mentioned that while recognizing Tibet as a part of People's Republic of China, he will continue to encourage dialogue between Beijing and the representative of the Tibet's government in exile, or the Dalai Lama. He stressed that he will also encourage Beijing and the governments of all nations to respect and preserve the distinct religious, linguistic and cultural identity of the Tibetan people worldwide. On the question whether he would commit to receiving and meeting with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he answered with an emphatic yes. He also recognized denial of visas and blocking the access of reporters, civil society actors, diplomats and others to places like Tibet that restrict freedom of movement and information as problematic. Mr. Rex Tillerson was the chairman and CEO of ExxonMobil before he was nominated by President Trump in the new administration. The first Tibet Interest Group meeting of the year 2017 was held in the European Parliament last Wednesday. The key agenda of the meeting was to follow up on the Larungar Urgency Resolution adopted by the European Parliament in December last year. The meeting was chaired by Tibet Interest Group President and Member of European Parliament Mr. Thomas Mann and members of European Parliament along with 16 parliamentary assistants. Secretary and Undersecretary from the Bureau de Tibet, Brussels attended the meeting. The meetings are expected to facilitate the implementation of various activities in the European Parliament in due course of time. On Wednesday this week, Tibet Group in French Senate also held its first meeting of the year with participation of 5 senators and the Tibetan side from the Bureau de Tibet, Paris. Representative Tashi Phuntsog thanked the senators for their presence and their continued support and urged them to enhance Tibet-related activities in the coming years. He also informed about the various activities that the Office of Tibet Brussels have been able to initiate in the European Parliament in the last few months and requested that the similar activities are initiated in the French Senate as well. The representative particularly referred to the December 2016 urgent European Parliament resolution on Larungar Buddhist Institute and urged the Senate Tibet Group to see the possibility of initiating a similar resolution in the French upper house too. Mr. Tashi Phuntsog made similar appeal to the French lawmakers during his visit to the French National Assembly last Tuesday. The representative met with Mr. Jean-Patrick Gill and Mr. Noël Mamère, the co-presidents of the Tibet Group in the French lower house. The Tibet Group in the National Assembly was founded in year 1990 and has 45 members from across the party in the French lower house. Mr. Ngudrup Doji, representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama of the Office of Tibet, South Africa, participated in the opening ceremony of Mahatma Gandhi Remembrance Garden and all-faith prayer meeting on Sunday last week. The event was organized by Indian High Commission and the Consulate General of Johannesburg to commemorate Martyrdom Day of the Mahatma Gandhi at Gandhi's Tolstoy farm. Speaking of the event, the representative said that it was a great opportunity to meet some of the most influential members and leaders of the South African Indian community. That's all for this week. See you next Friday. Have a good weekend.